Welcome to Campfire Stories, Episode 4. 1. Gather round, everybody, and get cozy. Tonight I have a chilling tale. A story of mystery, obsession, and a haunting little blemish that became something much more sinister. This is The Red Spot. Imagine a long time ago in a grand old house filled with elegant furniture and whispers of society's highest circles. There lived a woman named Miss Royal. Her life seemed perfect. Her husband was wealthy, and her home was beautiful, but hidden beneath the surface was a creeping unease. One day, Miss Royal noticed something unsettling, a small red spot on her cheek. At first, it seemed nothing more than a minor blemish, but soon it began to grow in her mind. The red spot grew more than just in size. It became an obsession. Everywhere Miss Royal went, she feared others were staring at it, judging her. Her reflection in the mirror was no longer just a reflection, but a constant reminder of this flaw. As the spot dominated her thoughts, Miss Royal's once perfect world began to crumble. Her husband grew distant, her social life faded, and she found herself isolated, trapped in her own anxiety. The red spot, so small, innocent at first, became a symbol of her inner torment. It was as if it had a life of its own, feeding on her fears, her insecurities. As her obsession grew, so did the distance between her and those around her. Some say the red spot was more than a blemish. They say it was a mark of a deeper curse, a reflection of Miss Royal's darkest fears and the judgment of society that valued appearance above all else. And as the story goes, the spot remained, a haunting reminder of her downfall. Now, as we sit here by this fire, think about the red spot, what it represents. Sometimes the smallest imperfections can grow into our biggest fears, especially when we let them consume us. So remember this tale as you gaze into the fire tonight. What might be a minor flaw in the daylight can take on a different shape in the dark, and sometimes it's the smallest things that hold the most power over us. 2. Shadow in the Woods. A group of friends went camping in a dense forest, eager to start the weekend of adventure. As they sat around a campfire, they started to hear strange noises coming from the surrounding woods, but they shrugged it off, thinking it was just an animal. As the night drew on, the noises grew more persistent and louder. Suddenly, they noticed a shadowy figure moving in the distance. It was tall and thin, with long arms and legs. It seemed to be watching them. The group tried to ignore it, but the shadow kept getting closer and closer. They could see its eyes glowing in the darkness. They realized it was not a normal animal. Panic set in. They tried to flee, but the shadowy figure was too fast. It started to chase them, and the friends ran as fast as they could through the woods. But it seemed like the shadow was always right there behind them. They could feel its icy breath on their necks, and they knew that they were being hunted. Finally, they stumbled upon an abandoned cabin in the woods. They tried to hide inside, but the shadowy figure was there already. It was waiting for them, its eyes glowing brighter than ever, and the friends could feel its icy presence closing in. They huddled together, scared to move, and as the shadowy figure reached out and grabbed them one by one, they were never seen or heard from again, and their disappearance became one of the greatest mysteries in the forest. From that day on, people whispered about the shadow in the woods, warning others to never go camping there. It was said that the shadowy figure still lurks in the woods, in the darkness, waiting for its next victim to appear. 3. 10 holes. Once in a little village not too far from here, there was a problem. Animals started dying off one by one. In the morning, their owners would find them outside with 10 holes in their chest. The people thought it was the work of their neighboring town. Then one night, a man named Fred was closing his store for the night. It was very late, and he was anxious to get home to his family. He shut off all the lights and closed the door with a satisfying click. He turned around to go to his car, and he saw a dark shape in the distance. He stood still, trying to make out what it was. It got closer. Fred turned to go, but it was his last move he ever made. The next day he was found with 10 holes in his chest. This made the town quite worried. They were scared that the people were getting killed. So one night, 2 brave brothers, John and Jacob, went out to get rid of the problem. They each took knives and walkie-talkies. They said goodbye to their father and kissed their grandmother on the way out. The 2 boys decided to split up. One would go to the site of the murder, and the other would wander the streets. If one was attacked, they could use their walkie-talkies to contact each other. So they set off, keeping a close eye on the shadows, not seeing anything. It was calm, and it seemed like they would get home safely. But then suddenly John heard the crackling in the bush behind him. He tried to call out to his brother, but it was too late. The figure leaped out of the bushes and attacked him, gouging at his chest with nails. Luckily, Jacob had heard the commotion and rushed to help him. He leaped through the air and cut off the creature's right hand. The creature screamed and ran. Jacob took John to the hospital, where they bandaged him. The doctor called them heroes. They finally got home at 6 in the morning. Their grandmother was the only one awake. They said goodnight to her and went to bed. Neither of them noticed her missing hand. 4. The cabin in the clearing. A group of friends set out on a camping trip in the woods, hoping for a weekend of adventure and fun. As they hiked deeper into the forest, they stumbled upon a clearing with an old cabin in it. Despite the cabin looking abandoned, the friends decided to explore it. They found it was full of old antiques and furniture. As they searched the room, they found an old journal. The journal belonged to a man who lived in the cabin for many years. He'd written about strange occurrences that happened in the cabin, including ghost sightings and unexplained noises. The group laughed at the idea of ghosts and decided to stay in the cabin for the night. As they settled in, they started to hear strange noises coming from all around them. It was coming from the walls, and they tried to ignore it, thinking it was the old building settling. But the noises grew louder and more persistent. They soon realized it wasn't just the cabin settling. It was something else in the cabin with them. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, trapping them inside. Then the window shutters, and a cold breeze swept through the room, bringing with it a feeling of terror. The group tried to leave, but the doors wouldn't budge. They were trapped with no escape, and they saw it, a ghostly figure. It was a woman in an old-fashioned dress, her hair covering her face, standing in the corner of the room. The ghostly figure approached them, and the group could feel its icy breath on their skin as they tried to run. But the ghostly figure kept appearing in front of them, blocking their path. As the night drew on, the ghostly figure grew more and more aggressive, and the group realized that they were in serious trouble. They were trapped in a haunted cabin with no way out. The next morning, the group was found huddled together in the cabin, their faces etched with fear. The group never spoke of their experience again, because they had seen something that night that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Thank you for listening to these campfire stories. If you like them, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. If you have any that you'd like me to cover, I have a viewer submission email on my description of my channel.